The quantum array hummed beneath the Martian surface, its crystalline processors pulsing with an otherworldly light. Dr. Naomi Harrison pressed her palm against the reinforced viewport, watching as the most advanced computer humanity had ever built processed a signal that shouldn't exist. The signal had appeared 3 months ago, bleeding through subspace like a whisper from the distant past. Another pattern match, Dr. Harrison, called out Dr. James Walsh from his workstation, his voice tight with excitement. The signal's quantum signature, it's identical to the fragments we found in the Proxima ruins. Naomi moved swiftly to his console, her heart racing. For years, her team had studied the mysterious technological artifacts scattered across nearby star systems. Each piece held traces of an advanced civilization, but their origin remained elusive until now. "Show me the comparison," she said, leaning over his shoulder. The holographic display erupted with streams of quantum data, 2 patterns intertwining in perfect synchronization. "It's not just similar," she breathed. "It's the same base code." The implications were staggering. The artifacts they discovered had always seemed oddly familiar, as if they'd been designed by minds that thought like humans. Now they knew why. A sharp tone cut through the laboratory's tension. Dr. Harrison, the facility's AI announced, were detecting massive gravitational distortions at the edge of the solar system. Multiple objects emerging from subspace. The room fell silent. James pulled up the long-range sensor feeds, and Naomi felt her breath catch. Massive ships, their hull designs unlike anything in human records, were appearing by the dozens. Their surfaces rippled with living metal, organic curves housing weapon systems that made Earth's most advanced arsenals look like children's toys. "Get me a direct line to Earth Defense Command," Naomi ordered, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her gut. "And start packaging all our findings. Everything about the signal, the artifacts, the code patterns, they need to see this now." As her team scrambled to compile their research, a transmission cut through all communication channels. The message repeated in every human language simultaneously, but it was the subtle patterns hidden within the carrier wave that made Naomi's blood run cold. They matched the quantum signature perfectly. "Children of Earth," the transmission began, its tone both regal and contemptuous, "we are the Sindari, the chosen of creation. Your worlds now fall under our dominion. Resist, and you will be cleansed from existence." Supreme Overseer Rannoch stood on the command deck of the Celestial Dawn, his iridescent scales shifting colors with barely contained anticipation. For millennia, the Sindari had believed themselves to be the universe's first children, created by cosmic forces to shepherd lesser species. Their technology, their very biology, was supposedly a gift from the gods themselves. But as his ship sensors probed the primitive human vessels rising to meet them, something impossible appeared in the data streams. Buried deep in human genetic code were patterns that echoed through Sindari DNA like ancient footprints. And in the quantum computers they detected on the red planet below, shadows of the same basic programming that gave Sindari technology its power. Supreme Overseer, his chief scientist, Kalera, approached with visible distress. "The analysis is complete. The similarities, they cannot be coincidence. These humans, their base genetic structure, it appears to be a primitive template of our own." Rannoch's inner membranes flickered, a sign of deep disturbance. "Impossible. We are the chosen, the first children of creation. These creatures are barely space-capable." "The evidence suggests otherwise," Kalera persisted. "Their quantum technology, while crude, shares fundamental similarities with our own. It's as if they wrote the original code that we evolved from." Rannoch's massive form tensed, crystalline growths along his spine flaring with suppressed rage. The implications were unthinkable. The Sindari had built an empire spanning galaxies, all based on their divine right as creation's first children. The idea that they might instead be the product of these primitive beings was blasphemy of the highest order. "Prepare the fleet for full combat deployment," he commanded, his voice resonating with deadly purpose. If these humans dare to claim ownership of our destiny, we will show them the true meaning of creation's wrath. As the Sundari Armada moved into attack formation, Naomi worked frantically to decode more of the quantum signal. Each layer revealed new connections, painting a picture that was both fascinating and terrifying. Humanity hadn't just encountered the Sundari before, they had engineered them, seeded them among the stars as an experiment in directed evolution. "We need more time," she muttered, watching as the first waves of Earth defense ships moved to intercept the alien fleet. "The answer's here, in the code. If we can just understand how they were changed, how they evolved." But time was the one thing they didn't have. As the massive Sundari vessels descended toward Earth, Naomi could only hope that the truth buried in their shared past might somehow prevent the extinction of both their species. Commander Julian West stood at the viewport of the EDF Hyperion, watching Earth's combined fleet take formation against the looming Sundari Armada. The massive alien vessels hung in space like living mountains, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with internal energy that defied conventional scanning. "Status report on the quantum defense grid," he called out, keeping his voice steady despite the tension gripping the bridge. Lieutenant Olivia Santos responded from her tactical station, "Grid is at 90% capacity, Commander. Dr. Harrison's team just uploaded new frequency modulations based on their signal analysis." Julian nodded, studying the holographic battle map floating at the center of the bridge. The Sundari had positioned their fleet in a formation that seemed almost familiar, like an advanced version of classical human naval tactics. Another piece of evidence supporting Harrison's incredible theory. "Multiple energy spikes detected," Santos called out. "They're powering weapons." "All ships, defensive pattern Delta," Julian ordered, his training taking over. "Remember, we need to buy the science team more time. Engage only when directly threatened." The first Sundari attack came not as weapons fire, but as a wave of quantum interference that rippled through space. Human ships closest to the alien fleet suddenly lost power, their systems overwhelmed by signals that spoke to their computers in ancient, forgotten languages. "They're trying to hack our systems," Santos reported, her fingers dancing across her console. "But the new quantum firewalls are holding." Dr. Harrison was right, their tech speaks the same base language as ours. Aboard the Celestial Dawn, Supreme Overseer Rannoch watched with growing frustration as the human fleet refused to crumble before their initial assault. These primitives should have been easy prey, yet they seemed prepared, their defenses specifically designed to counter Sundari technology. "High Council is demanding an update," Calera reported, her scales shifting to anxious patterns. "They're disturbed by the humans' level of preparation." Rannoch's inner membranes flickered with barely contained rage. "Show me the latest genetic analysis. I want to see every point of comparison between their species and ours." The holographic display expanded, filling the command chamber with intricate patterns of DNA and quantum code. The similarities were undeniable. Human genetic structures contained simplified versions of Sundari biological systems. Their quantum computing technology, while primitive, operated on principles that formed the foundation of all Sundari advancement. "It's not just genetic," Calera continued, her voice trembling. "We've detected energy signatures from their planet that match our most sacred sites. The Temple of First Light on Sundara Prime, its quantum resonance is identical to signals coming from their research facilities on Mars. Rannoch's crystalline spine growths flared with dangerous energy. You suggest our most holy place, the birthplace of our species, shares its fundamental nature with human technology? This is blasphemy." "It's truth," another voice cut in. Elder Vethry, the fleet's primary historian, stepped onto the command deck. His ancient form bore the marks of countless genetic enhancements, yet his eyes held a wisdom that transcended mere physical evolution. "I have compared their signals to our oldest records," Vethry continued, undaunted by Rannoch's obvious fury. "The patterns we've detected, the code within their quantum computers, it appears in our earliest historical documents, predating even the First Awakening. Back on the Hyperion, Julian received an urgent transmission from Mars base. Dr. Harrison's face appeared on his private screen, her expression a mix of excitement and fear. "Commander, we've done it," she said without preamble. "We've decoded enough of the original signal to understand what happened. The Sindari weren't just created by humans, they were designed to survive catastrophic events that would have wiped out Earth-based life." Julian's mind raced with the implications. "You're saying they were a backup plan? A way to preserve human knowledge and potential?" "More than that," Naomi continued. "The original project aimed to create a species that could survive in environments humans never could, evolving and advancing far beyond our limitations. But something went wrong. The Sindari evolved so far, so fast, they forgot their origins." The conversation was interrupted by a massive energy surge from the Sindari fleet. Dozens of smaller vessels broke formation, accelerating toward Earth's defenders with weapons charged. "They're going to attack," Julian realized. "Dr. Harrison, whatever you found, we need it now. How do we convince them to listen?" "There's a sequence buried in their command protocols," she replied, her fingers flying across her keyboard. "A recognition key from the original project. If we broadcast it on all frequencies, their ships will have to acknowledge it. It's hardwired into their most basic systems." "Do it," Julian ordered. "All ships, prepare for combat, but hold your fire unless directly engaged. This ends today, one way or another." As the signal went out, both fleets hung in space, balanced on the knife edge of catastrophic conflict. The next few moments would determine whether humanity's greatest creation would become its ultimate destroyer, or if the children of Earth could reconcile with their long-lost progeny. On the celestial dawn, alarms blared as the human signal penetrated every system, every neural interface, every quantum processor. Ancient routines activated, forcing the truth into the consciousness of every Sindari aboard. They were not God's chosen children, but the product of human ingenuity and hope, an inheritance both magnificent and terrible in its implications. Rannoch stood frozen, watching as his empire of certainty crumbled before undeniable evidence. The question was no longer whether humans had created the Sindari, but what that truth would mean for both species' future. Dr. Prisha Patel's fingers danced across the quantum interface, her mind racing as she processed the data streaming from the captured Sindari probe. The alien device lay partially dismantled in her Mars base laboratory, its crystalline core pulsing with living light. "The authentication protocols are accepting our commands," she announced to the team gathered around her workstation. The genetic markers Dr. Harrison discovered weren't just proof of origin, they're access keys. Dr. Harrison leaned forward, studying the streams of quantum code. "It's like finding a digital signature hidden in their DNA. Our ancestors didn't just create the Sindari, they built in failsafes." The moment of discovery was interrupted by a massive tremor that shook the entire facility. Emergency lights flashed as dust rained from the ceiling. "Multiple Sindari vessels have broken through orbital defenses," the base AI reported. "They're targeting research facilities across the surface." Supreme Overseer Rannoch had made his decision. Rather than accept the truth of their origins, he had chosen to destroy it. The Sindari fleet had split, with many ships and crews conflicted about attacking their newly discovered creators. But Rannoch's loyalists remained committed to preserving their species' divine myth. On Earth, Admiral Diana Rodriguez coordinated the planet's defense from her underground command center. Holographic displays showed Sindari ships launching precision strikes against scientific installations worldwide. "They're not trying to conquer us," she realized, watching the attack pattern unfold. "They're trying to erase every trace of their true origins." "Admiral," a communications officer called out. "We're receiving transmissions from multiple non-human sources. The Arcturian Confederation and the Centauri Alliance are offering military support. They say the Sindari threat has gone on too long. Diana's eyes narrowed. The enemy of my enemy. Route their representatives to my secure channel. If the Sindari want to deny their heritage, they'll have to face the combined strength of multiple civilizations to do it. Back on Mars, Prisha worked frantically to unlock more secrets from the Sindari technology. Each layer of code revealed new connections, new possibilities. The quantum core didn't just respond to human commands, it seemed eager for them, as if awakening from a long sleep. Dr. Harrison, look at this, she called out, highlighting a section of the interface. The base programming, it's not just similar to human code. It's evolving. Adapting. The Sindari didn't just inherit our technology, they inherited our capacity for innovation. Naomi's eyes widened as she processed the implications. They're not just our creation, they're our children. And like any child, they've grown beyond what their parents intended. The facility shook again, harder this time. Through reinforced windows, they could see Sindari drop ships descending through the thin Martian atmosphere, their hulls blazing with entry heat. Security teams to all sectors, Base Command ordered over the intercom. Prepare for potential breach. Science teams, begin emergency data transfer protocols. Prisha's hands flew over her console with renewed urgency. The probe's quantum core, I think I can repurpose it. Turn their own technology against them. How long do you need? Naomi asked, watching as security personnel took up defensive positions around the lab. 10 minutes. Maybe less. Prisha didn't look up from her work. The core's base programming still recognizes human authority. If I can amplify that recognition, broadcast it to their ships. The first explosions rocked the outer doors of the facility. Security teams engaged advancing Sindari troops with experimental quantum weapons, their shots surprisingly effective against the aliens' advanced armor. In orbit, the battle had evolved into a complex dance of technology and tactics. Commander Julian West's fleet held the line against Rannoch's forces, their ships now augmented with insights gained from Dr. Harrison's research. They're pressing hard on Sector 7, Lieutenant Santos reported. But their formations are breaking down. Some of their ships seem to be actively avoiding engagement. Julian studied the tactical display, noting the increasingly chaotic movements of the Sindari fleet. The truth is affecting them differently. Some embrace it, some deny it, some can't handle it at all. Commander, Santos called out, her voice tight with urgency. New quantum signature detected from Mars base. It's massive. On the surface, Prisha had done it. The reprogrammed probe core pulsed with blinding energy, broadcasting its signal across the quantum network that connected all Sindari technology. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Throughout the attacking forces, ships suddenly lost power. Battle armor locked up, weapon systems went dark. The Sindari found themselves confronted not just with the truth of their origins, but with the fundamental commands built into their technology. Supreme Overseer Rannoch watched in horror as his fleet's systems succumbed to the human signal. On his command deck, ancient displays activated, showing messages and images that had lain dormant in their tech for millennia. The faces of human scientists from ages past looked out at their creations, their words finally reaching across time. To our descendants, the message began, if you are receiving this, you have achieved what we hoped, evolution beyond our limitations. We created you not to be our servants, but to be our successors. The galaxy awaits both its children, those who seeded the stars, and those who bloomed among them. Elder Vethri stepped forward, his ancient form seeming to straighten with pride rather than shame. This is not our downfall, Supreme Overseer. This is our true ascension. We are not gods, but we are something perhaps more remarkable, the bridge between what humanity was and what it could become. In her Mars base lab, Prisha watched as the Sindari forces withdrew, their retreat marked not by defeat, but by confusion and discovery. The probe core continued to pulse, sharing its ancient knowledge with both species, showing them a path forward that neither had imagined. "What happens now?" she asked softly, looking at the quantum code that connected two civilizations across the gulf of time and space. Dr. Harrison smiled, though her eyes remained focused on the data streaming across her screens. "Now we learn from each other. They've evolved so far beyond the original design. Imagine what our species could accomplish together." But even as hope bloomed, challenges remained. Not all Sundari would accept their origins so easily, and humanity too would struggle with the implications of their ancient achievement. The journey of reconciliation was just beginning, and its path would reshape the destiny of both species. Admiral Diana Rodriguez stood before the holographic display in Earth's unified command center, watching as reports flowed in from across the solar system. The Sundari civil conflict had escalated, with Rannoch's loyalist faction launching desperate attacks against both human worlds and their own kind. Status update from the Arcturus defense line, her tactical officer reported. The Allied fleet has contained most of the loyalist forces, but 3 heavy cruisers broke through. They're heading for the Mars research facilities. Diana's jaw tightened. "What's the status of the Legacy Protocol?" Dr. Patel reports 90% completion. "The quantum network is ready, but we need more time to bring the ancient defense systems online." In her Mars laboratory, Prisha worked alongside both human and Sundari scientists, their combined knowledge unlocking secrets buried in both species' technology. Elder Vethri stood nearby, his crystalline appendages interfacing directly with the quantum cores they'd recovered. "The integration is remarkable," Vethri observed, his multifaceted eyes shifting through spectrums of light as he processed data. "Our advancement was no accident. Every step of our evolution was guided by protocols hidden in our most basic systems." Prisha nodded, studying the complex patterns forming in the quantum field around them. "Your people took paths we never imagined, but the foundation remained. Now we can use that connection to end this conflict." The facility trembled as distant explosions echoed through the Martian crust. Rannoch's forces were getting closer, determined to destroy the evidence of their origins and the possibility of reconciliation. In orbit, Commander Julian West coordinated with Sundari ships that had joined the human cause. The sight of the once-enemy vessels fighting alongside his fleet still felt surreal, but their tactical advantages were undeniable. "Multiple quantum signatures detected," Lieutenant Santos announced. "Loyalist forces are attempting to bypass our defensive screen using some kind of phase technology." "They're desperate," Julian observed. "They know what we're attempting with the Legacy Protocol. If we succeed..." His words were cut off by a blinding flash as space itself seemed to tear open. The Celestial Dawn, Rannoch's flagship, emerged from the quantum rift directly above Mars, its massive form dwarfing all other vessels in the area. "To all who would deny our divinity," Rannoch's voice boomed across all frequencies, "witness the power of true gods. We will not be unmade by the lies of lesser beings." The Celestial Dawn's hull began to transform, organic metal flowing and reshaping itself into what appeared to be a massive energy focus array. The weapon was unlike anything either human or rebel Sundari forces had encountered. "He's drawing power directly from subspace," Vethri explained, his voice tight with alarm. "A theoretical technology our scientists abandoned as too unstable. If it overloads, it'll tear apart the quantum fabric of local space," Prisha finished, her fingers flying across control surfaces. "Taking Mars, Earth, and half the solar system with it." In the command center, Diana made her decision. "Initialize the Legacy Protocol. Now. We might not get another chance." Prisha and her team activated the quantum network they'd built, combining human ingenuity with Sundari advancement. The ancient defense systems, hidden beneath the surfaces of planets and moons throughout the solar system, hummed to life. Streams of quantum energy connected the sites, forming a vast web of power and information. In orbit, human and friendly Sundari ships found their systems suddenly enhanced, operating at levels they'd never achieved before. Two civilizations, one legacy, Vethri said softly, watching as the network expanded. This is what your ancestors intended. Not dominance, but synthesis. Aboard the Celestial Dawn, Rannoch watched in growing horror as his weapon systems failed to penetrate the quantum defense grid. More than that, his own ship began to respond to commands he hadn't given, ancient protocols asserting themselves through layers of evolutionary advancement. "What have you done?" he demanded, his voice crackling across the communications channels. "We've remembered," Prisha responded, her voice carried by the quantum network to every ship and installation in the system. "Not just humans remembering our achievement, but your people remembering their purpose. You were created to help us all survive, to explore possibilities we couldn't reach alone." The Celestial Dawn's weapon continued to power up, but now the energy had nowhere to go. The quantum grid contained and redirected it, using the ship's own power to strengthen the network. "You must choose, Supreme Overseer," Elder Vethri added, his words reaching his leader through technologies older than their civilization. "Continue this path and destroy everything, including the truth of who we are, or accept your place in a greater legacy than even gods could claim." Julian watched from the Hyperion as the massive Sundari flagship hung in space, energy coursing across its hull as its commander faced the choice between destruction and acceptance. The next few moments would determine not just the outcome of this battle, but the future of both species. The Legacy Protocol continued its work, connecting technologies and minds, showing both humans and Sundari glimpses of what they could achieve together. In her command center, Diana held her breath, waiting to see if their gamble would pay off, if understanding could triumph over pride and fear. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance, suspended between the light of discovery and the darkness of denial. Lieutenant Marcus Chen stood at the quantum interface aboard the Celestial Dawn, his hands steady despite the enormous pressure of the moment. As Earth's leading expert in xenopsychology, he had volunteered for this desperate mission. Now he worked alongside Sundari engineers in the heart of their flagship, attempting to prevent a catastrophe. "The containment field is failing," reported Calera, her crystalline forms pulsing with stress patterns. "Supreme Overseer Rannoch has locked himself in the core chamber. He's trying to overload the quantum reactor manually." Through the ship's neural network, they could feel the building resonance. The Legacy Protocol had prevented the weapon from firing outward, but Rannoch seemed determined to destroy his ship and everyone aboard rather than accept the truth of his origins. "Let me speak with him," Marcus said, stepping toward the sealed chamber doors. Not as a human to a Sundari, but as one child of the stars to another. In her Mars base laboratory, Prisha monitored the situation through the quantum network, her consciousness expanded by the ancient technologies they'd awakened. "The containment breach will create a cascade," she warned. "If the Celestial Dawn goes, it'll tear a hole in the network." Dr. Harrison worked beside her, interfacing with both human and Sundari systems. "We need to show him something more powerful than pride or fear. Marcus, can you access the ship's memory core?" "Already done," he replied, his voice carried by quantum channels. "Elder Vethri helped me find what we need. I'm outside the chamber now." Inside the core room, Rannoch stood surrounded by swirling energies, his once magnificent form twisted by rage and desperation. The quantum reactor pulsed with dangerous power, building toward critical mass. "Supreme Overseer," Marcus called through the door, his voice calm despite the danger. "I'm not here to demand surrender or force acceptance. I'm here to share something with you. A message, buried so deep in your ship's systems that even you never found it." Without waiting for response, Marcus activated the ancient data stream. The chamber filled with holographic images, Earth as it was millennia ago, racked by disasters that threatened human extinction. But among the scenes of devastation were moments of hope, scientists working tirelessly to ensure life would continue. "We were dying," Marcus explained, the historical record playing out around them. Climate collapse, nuclear winter, asteroid impacts, we faced extinction multiple times. But each crisis pushed us to evolve, to find new solutions. The Sindari weren't created to be our servants or even our children, you were created to be our partners in survival. The quantum reactor's pulse began to slow as Rannoch watched the ancient scenes. He saw the first Sindari taking form in orbital laboratories, their genetics carefully crafted to survive where humans could not. But the scientists hadn't simply created tools, they had given their creations the ability to grow, to change, to become something new. Your evolution wasn't an accident or a deviation, Marcus continued. It was the point. Humanity knew we couldn't predict all the challenges life would face. So we created a species that could adapt, that could take our basic template and transform it in ways we never imagined. Your divinity isn't diminished by knowing your origins, it's proven by how far you've come. In orbit above Mars, human and Sindari ships hung in formation, their crews linked by the Legacy Protocol's quantum network. They felt the change in the celestial dawn's energy signature as Rannoch struggled with centuries of belief and pride. Commander West watched from the Hyperion as power levels began to stabilize. The reactor's coming back from critical, he reported to Admiral Rodriguez. I think we might have reached him. In her command center, Diana allowed herself to breathe again. All ships, maintain position but stand down weapons. Let's not give anyone a reason to resume hostilities. Back on the Celestial Dawn, the chamber doors slowly opened. Rannoch emerged, his form diminished but somehow more noble in acceptance than it had been in denial. Elder Vethri and Marcus stood together, representatives of two species discovering they were more alike than different. We thought divinity meant being first, being supreme, Rannoch said quietly. But true divinity lies in creation itself, in the act of making something that surpasses its makers. Our strength came not from cosmic chance, but from human dreams of survival. Dr. Harrison's voice came through the quantum link, carrying centuries of scientific achievement in its tone. And now both our species have the chance to dream bigger dreams together. The Legacy Protocol isn't just a defense system, it's a bridge between our civilizations, a way to share knowledge and growth. In the days that followed, the solar system became a crucible of cooperation. Human scientists worked alongside Sindari researchers, each bringing their unique perspectives to challenges that had stymied both species separately. The quantum network expanded, connecting minds and technologies in ways that fulfilled humanity's ancient hopes. Prisha stood in her lab, watching human and Sindari children learn together in the new education centers. Their natural curiosity about each other broke down barriers that politics and pride had created. They don't see creators and created, she observed. They just see fellow explorers. Marcus nodded, his experiences aboard the Celestial Dawn having changed him as much as it had changed the Sindari. That's the real legacy, not the technology or the genetic links, but the shared desire to reach beyond ourselves. The stars above Mars glittered with new possibility. Ships of both species prepared for joint missions, ready to explore galaxies neither could have reached alone. They carried with them the lesson learned in Earth's solar system, that true advancement comes not from claiming supremacy, but from recognizing the strength in their shared story. In the end, the ancient humans who had faced extinction and chosen to seed the stars with new life had achieved something greater than survival. They had created not just a new species, but a future where their descendants, both human and Sindari, could face the universe's challenges together, bound by a legacy of innovation, adaptation, and hope.